The broken gate creaked open like a rusty swing set mourning its dead. It had been chained shut for over half a century, ever since Pilgrim Psychiatric Hospital was shut down for conducting inhumane experiments on its own patients. But four thrill-seekers weren't deterred by local legends or the danger that lurked within. For some, a dare is a challenge to be conquered. For others, it's a chance to prove themselves. And for three friends and their girlfriend, it's a night they would regret. Not 5 minutes into their urban exploration, the main doors slammed shut behind them, as if locking them inside on purpose. As the heavy wooden doors swung shut, they heard a loud crash from above, like something heavy falling from a height. A musty smell filled their nostrils, bringing back memories of moth-infested storage rooms and decaying wood. The air hung heavy and stale, thick with the chilling presence of the countless souls who suffered and died within these four walls. They could feel the eyes of the departed upon them, watching their every move from the shadows. Ben, the self-proclaimed leader of the pack, fumbled with his lighter, casting an unsteady flame that danced in the darkness, his bravado from before evaporating into thin air. John, the skeptic, rolled up his sleeves, revealing tattoos of grim reapers dancing around a pentagram, his face painted with war-ready tribal patterns. He pulled out a large hunting knife, more for show than anything else. Next to him, Sarah, silent and observant, held a small camcorder to her chest like a shield. Only Amy seemed to have calmed down a bit, clutching at her boyfriend Mark tightly. Mark, the level-headed one, tried to keep calm and think of a way out. They explored what appeared to be the hospital's main hall, each step echoing in the oppressive silence. The faint glow of their flashlights revealed peeling paint and faded wallpaper adorned with disturbing patterns that seemed to writhe and twist in the flickering light. Through an archway stood a row of doors, each labeled with a number and sealed with wax. The numbers, however, didn't follow any discernible pattern, and a strange feeling of unease washed over them, as if the very walls were watching their every move. The first sound they heard was the scraping of metal on stone, like a wheelchair being pushed across the floor. The hairs on the back of their necks stood on end. Was there someone else in the building? Or was it the ghost of a patient come to greet them? John scoffed at the thought, attributing the sound to rodents or perhaps a loose shutter. But Ben and Sarah exchanged nervous glances, their skepticism wavering. As they rounded a corner, the source of the noise appeared before them. An old wheelchair sat abandoned in the dim light, its wheels slightly turned. The seat was tattered, but the chains holding the footrests were intact. Had someone been sitting here moments ago? Why did the wheelchair move on its own? The questions hung in the stagnant air unanswered. Suddenly, a book fell from a shelf above them, hitting the floor with a resounding thud. The sudden noise made Amy jump into Mark's arms, her face ashen. John let out a harsh laugh, attempting to break the tension. He picked up the book and brushed off the dust, his face illuminated by the flashlight beam. Its pages were filled with indecipherable scribbles and diagrams that looked like nothing so much as torture devices. As he turned a page, a dark stain spread across the aged paper, a gruesome reminder of the asylum's dark past. More unsettling sounds joined the cacophony, whispers that seemed to slither through the vents and materialize right next to their ears. Words too distorted to make out, yet chilling nonetheless. The whispers seemed to mock them, taunting them with tales of suffering and despair. Amy squeezed Mark's hand, her knuckles whitening. Was this place haunted by the tormented souls who once resided here? And then they saw them, flickers of movement in their peripheral vision. Just as they turned to face the disturbance, the shadowy figures vanished. John dismissed it as tricks of the light, But Ben and Sarah couldn't help but wonder if they were truly alone. Their flashlights danced across the walls, revealing fleeting glimpses of figures lurking in the corners. The asylum was coming alive with movement, every shadow seeming to harbor a hidden menace. Then the laughter echoed through the empty halls, a soundless scream that chilled them to the bone. It was the sound of pure terror, devoid of humanity, as if the very walls were screaming in agony. Suddenly, the floor beneath them gave way. The camcorder flew from Sarah's hands and tumbled down the hole, disappearing from view. Before anyone could react, a strong wind gushed out from the opening, extinguishing their flashlights and plunging them into absolute darkness. Amy screamed, her voice echoing in the vast emptiness. Lost in the labyrinthine structure, the darkness pressed in on all sides, suffocating them with its oppressive weight. The wind howled, whispering secrets of madness and despair. Now, without their lights, they were vulnerable, lost in a maze of shadows. As their eyes slowly adjusted to the gloom, they noticed a narrow passage leading deeper into the bowels of the building. The air grew colder, sending shivers down their spines. Deeper in, they found themselves in a dimly lit chamber, its walls adorned with peeling wallpaper that resembled a festering disease. In the center stood a large metal table, its surface cold and uninviting. Instruments of torture lay scattered about, their rusted edges glinting faintly in the dim light. There were scalpels, clamps, electrodes, and even a hypodermic needle, all silently narrating tales of pain and anguish. They realized they had stumbled upon one of the asylum's many hidden rooms, places where unspeakable experiments had been conducted. But they couldn't stay here. They needed to find another way out. As they continued their desperate search for an exit, they heard a low, guttural growl that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. It was a primal sound that stirred something ancient and evil. The growl grew louder, shaking the foundations of the building. Then, from the corner of their eye, they saw it. A dark, hulking shape that seemed to writhe and pulsate in the shadows. It was tall and emaciated, with long, sharp claws that scraped against the floor. Its eyes glowed with an eerie green light, piercing the darkness. They ran, their footsteps pounding in their ears as they fled deeper into the labyrinth. Behind them, the creature moved with an unnatural speed, its growls echoing in their wake. They didn't dare turn back. They didn't want to see what horrors awaited them. But they knew they were being stalked, hunted by something they couldn't comprehend. As the creature drew closer, its hot, fetid breath on their necks, they felt its malevolent presence envelop them. The last thing they saw before they blacked out was the asylum's grinning face, a grotesque parody of a smile. When Mark regained consciousness, he found himself in a dark, dank room. Chains hung from the walls and the floor was littered with rusted medical instruments. But it was the sight of the others that tore through him like shards of glass. They were gone. Had the creature taken them? Was he the only one left? Panic threatened to consume him, but he forced it down. He had to stay calm, had to find a way out. He remembered the hole in the floor. Maybe they had escaped through it. Rushing to the opening, he peered into the darkness below. It was a long drop, but he could make it. Taking a deep breath, he jumped. As he fell, he heard a voice whispering in his ear, a voice that seemed to belong to the very walls themselves. It spoke of pain and torment, of darkness and despair. But amidst the chaos, he caught a word that sent a chill down his spine. Hope. Was the asylum trying to communicate with him? Was it warning him? When he landed, he found himself in a subterranean chamber. Glowing tendrils snaked across the floor, illuminating bizarre symbols that seemed to writhe and pulse like living things. The air hung heavy with the scent of decay, and a low, ominous hum resonated through the chamber. And then he saw it. The asylum itself, or what remained of it, floated in the center of the room, suspended in mid-air. Tendrils connected it to the walls, channeling power from the very earth itself. The building throbbed with an otherworldly energy, and the tendrils pulsed in time with its ancient heart. But this was no ordinary structure. It was a vessel, a conduit, feeding off the darkness that thrived in the human psyche. It had been here for centuries, growing in power, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And now it was stirring. As Mark watched in horror, the asylum began to rise, tendrils lashing out like whips, crashing into the walls and shattering the symbols that once pulsed with power. The humming grew louder, evolving into a deafening roar. The walls trembled, threatening to collapse. Mark stumbled back, tripping over his own feet. He had to get out, had to escape before the asylum crushed him under its unyielding might. But as he turned to flee, the tendrils lashed out again, wrapping themselves around his legs and pulling him toward the rising vessel. Struggling against their icy grip, he looked back at the crumbling chamber, at the symbols that had once glowed with unearthly light. His mind raced, trying to comprehend what he had just witnessed. As the asylum rose higher, tendrils reaching toward the surface, it pulsed with a new-found strength. Its hunger sated for now. It would wait, biding its time until its next victims dared to enter its domain. And when they did, it would be ready.